Juggling motherhood and modern day life can be stressful and relentless, but it doesn't need to be this way. The Joy of Being podcast is the answer to maternal mental health, bringing sustainable relief and calm to hardworking mums everywhere so that you, your family and work can thrive. My name's Marina Pearson and I'm your host, transformational coach and mum who loves to interview business owners, transformational professionals and creatives to have insightful conversations about what it takes to really live a life that is thriving, fulfilling and full of joy. So in the next coming weeks, I have decided to launch a coronavirus series in which I'll be bringing on amazing guests to talk about these uncertain times and how even in uncertainty, there can be an amazing opportunity for us to thrive. Now, that may sound weird, especially if you're seeing markets tumble, especially if you've got people around you that are suffering because of the virus, and maybe even if because you are scared of your business coming to a halt. Whatever it is, the fears that you have and the panic that you may be feeling, then this series is going to really help with that. I felt really compelled to bring this into my awareness, but also into the awareness of you, the listener. So with that in mind, I'm super excited to be launching this series and for us to create a different conversation to the one that's being had in the media. Not to say that this isn't important, not to say that we're not entering into difficult times, but to say that there is and there are other ways of viewing it other than the panic and the fear that's being brought to the table. So if you are feeling that and you are being affected by the coronavirus through your business, through your finances, through your health, then these are going to be incredible conversations to be tuning into. And if you know of anybody in that situation, then please do share the episodes with them. Enjoy. And on today's show, I have the beautiful Colette Reilly. Colette is a coach who helps and supports people to calm down, see clearly and access their inner resourcefulness. And the reason why I actually reached out to her was because I saw a post on Facebook that she made about how she inclusively parents with her kids, and it really resonated for me. So I thought I'd get a little bit more curious and find out a little bit more about how inclusive parenting has been working for her and what are the benefits and what she's seen as the drawbacks too, but ultimately what's come out of it as a result. We talked about why inclusive parenting, we talked about the benefits of inclusive parenting, we talked about what inclusive parenting actually even is, and we also talked about how to navigate the different stages of little children to teenagers and how this way of being can actually be beneficial to all ages. So if you are struggling with your parenting and you are coming up against lots of resistance, then this may well be a great way to resolve all of that. Enjoy. So welcome everybody, and on today's show I have Colette Reilly. Interestingly enough, Colette and I connected years back, like about 5 years back. I looked at my messenger, I was like, oh, I actually know her. But actually what drew me to her was a comment that she made in a Facebook group around inclusive parenting. And it was something that really resonated for me and something that I wanted to explore more for those of you that maybe, just maybe, this might resonate for you too, that you're looking for a different way of doing things because the way that you're doing things right now isn't working. So welcome, Colette.
Hello, lovely to have. Well, lovely for you to have me.
It's lovely for me to have you too. So I'm glad that we're being inclusive around that too. So Colette, I'd love you to share a little bit about what your philosophy is around this inclusive parenting and how it's really helped you navigate this, I guess, experience of motherhood. And I mean, obviously now your kids are grown, but in the time of lockdown, what's been really working for you, and how do you see it?
Lots of things in that. So for me, the core of my parenting approach is that parents are people too, and kids are people too. We're all human together. We're in different ages and stages of our own development. Just because we're a parent does not mean that we know everything. I think it's really important for me to own that and to model that for my kids, that I make mistakes. And when I do, I face up to them and try my best to move on, much like that's exactly what I want them to do, because we're all just experiencing life. So we will offend somebody, we will do something that could have been better. And when we create the space to own that and reflect on that, then for me, that optimises our chance of growth, which, again, that's what parenting's all about. I think it's not about creating rules and making our kids turn into something that we want them to be. It's creating an environment that they can turn into who they're born to be.
I love that. That's so beautiful, and that's so beautifully put. Because it is such a dance, isn't it? It's such a dance between guiding and imposing. It's subtle, but it's profound. So what have you seen? What have you seen as a result? Because, I mean, I guess you've been doing this since your kids were really, really young, and where they're now is maybe 10 or 11 years on. So I'm curious about how you've seen that approach really work, and where you found also that it might, how has it worked out with using this approach that you have, which is inclusive?
So for me, I regularly check in with my kids, asking them what's working well, what could be better, how am I showing up as your mum, what do you like about how I'm showing up, how would you like me to change, creating a space to hear that. And sometimes that's really uncomfortable and sometimes it's really funny as well. But if I expect them to put on their brave pants and ask for what they want in the world, because so often, I don't know about you, but it's a very British way of being brought up that it's rude to ask, if I want doesn't get, when actually I want does get. It's just we need to ask nicely and be mindful about the consequences of what we're asking for. So for me, I want to encourage that behaviour. So if they want something of me, I want to create a safe space for that to happen, for them to ask for that. And equally, for it to be safe for me to say, guys, I need this from you. So we're going to work together as a team. So rather than it be me kind of saying, you must do this and come on, change, and expect particular behaviours, it's a kind of teamwork makes the dream work approach. So how does that work? We've got quite a chilled out family, and it's really difficult to say because you can't go back in time. You can't split test this to say, well, if I parented in a different way, then potentially they might have, evolved into different humans or behave in different ways. It is what it is. We are very close. And that doesn't mean to say that I know everything about them. I know a lot about them. We absolutely have our run-ins, because we all do. We all get caught in a thought storm sometimes, but we acknowledge that and we move on from it. So again, it's back to what I said earlier on about when we all mess up and we offend each other, or, we're grumpy. Let's apologise, own that and move on.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. Leo and I now have these characters. He has somebody called Crazy Boy, and I've got somebody called Crazy Mum that shows up.
Yeah.
And I will not speak to Crazy Boy.
Uh-huh.
And I'm walking away from this conversation until Crazy Boy calms down and I have my Leo back. So he does his deep breathing and we start the conversation again, and then he'll go, and then he'll get all riled up again. And I said, no, you're not ready yet. I need Leo back. So now we can have a conversation. And he'll point it out to me too, actually. He'll be like, Crazy Mum's back.
And that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we need something outside of us.
Yeah.
Take that state and just, right, okay, I'm caught in it.
Yeah. So
we're caught in it. We can't see it. It seems so real.
Yeah, no, I know. And sometimes we both get caught in it and we don't have the space to kind of
talk about that. But then there is always the coming back to, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that, or I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. So I'm curious, actually. I'm curious about how it worked. Has it changed? Obviously, you know, if you've got a 3 or 4 year old to having a teenager, I'm assuming that would have changed over time. So what have you seen in that?
So with, I would say adolescence tends to start around 8. And again, you know, every child is different. So it can be a wee bit younger and it can be a wee bit older. But it's around that they start to go on the turn and they kind of move away from being that loving and open to and quite receptive, because nature is telling them to kind of start moving away and getting ready for, you know, becoming their independent self. So it's been around that time that all 3 of mine started kind of rejecting my approach and being more, whatever, mum. And to begin with, I was really offended and hurt by that. Luckily enough for me, very fortunately, in hindsight, at the time it was tough. There's quite a big age gap between my firstborn. There's 5 years between my firstborn and secondborn. Bless my eldest, he's been a little experimental child. So we went through the teenage years not really kind of understanding what was going on. And that was challenging. And I wish now that I knew how adolescence would impact how he felt about himself and his behaviour and, you know, all the different things that go along with that. That was very, very tough. And I spent a lot of time being stuck in a thought storm thinking there was something wrong because we didn't have the engagement that we used to have in the younger years. But again, reflection is a beautiful thing. And we've built that into our family. I've built that into my way of being. Again, it's of what worked well, what didn't. So over the years, I have noticed how I've shown up and how triggered I can become with certain behaviours in my kids. And luckily enough, I'm no longer as triggered by that, purely from awareness with my younger 2 now. And they're kind of coming into that. They're 12 and 13 just now. So it does change. Their willingness to engage in a conversation isn't as great now as it was then. I've had to be a lot more creative around creating that space and encouraging them to, again, reflect and own where they're coming from and their willingness to share that with me. And also, crucially, this has been really tough for me, my acceptance that sometimes I'm not the person that they're going to share things with. So it's no longer, when they were younger, the whole, you know, family audit, let's talk and connect and find out what's working. That happened together collectively, but now I've really got to own their reflection and their learning comes in their own time. And if they need somebody else to bounce things off of, then that's fine. The main thing is that they get that reflection and learning. Not that I'm aware of it and I know it and it's, you know, that's my stuff.
So when you said get creative, what does that mean?
Cuddling up with them. So whereas years ago, when they were little, we could play. We could have conversations while we would be in the park and these, or, you know, driving in the car. And these were the guaranteed ways of opening the kids up. Especially, say that again.
Give me an example of what that means.
So what that means now, as they are as a teenager, I go to them So my son, for example, he is a kind of nighttime person. So we talk about a variety of different things. And when there's something that we're needing, that I feel that we would benefit from talking about, it's just creating that environment that works for him. So that means creating or becoming aware of what puts him in a good mood. And that often is not me or his dad. Because I'm the cheesy mum, you don't want to hang about with your mum. So it's catching him when he's back in from being out with his friends. So, and because he's in that beautiful kind of connected state anyway, so I kind of, catch the back end of that. So how are you? And he tends to be more
open to conversation.
Yeah. Whereas if I go into his room wanting to talk, I'm trying to create that openness myself. That wouldn't work as well.
That's really powerful, because it really is just picking the moments when you see that they are open to have that conversation. And I guess it makes sense, It's a bit like you can't will someone to have a conversation even as a grown-up.
Absolutely.
And we've also got to pick our moments as well. Like it's not the best moment to have a conversation with somebody that's closed down and not really in the moment or in their, in their true essence. So it would make sense that this would be exactly the same.
And so often as parents, we think that we have got to control the situation. Now, this is my agenda and we need to speak about this and we need to address this. And we lose sight of the fact that it's just a human. It's a human in front of us with exactly the same needs and wants as we do. And we as adults hate it when somebody comes to us. We have got to speak about this now and make this very serious. We hate that. So why in the world are we doing that to our children?
I love this. I saw this the other day where there is no difference between a child and a grown-up, just at different developmental stages. And even as grown-ups, we can be like kids, right? So there really is no difference. And they can be really wise. Like I listen to Leo sometimes and I'm like, wow, that's really wise, Leo. Like that's super wise.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that on. But I love this idea or this sense of I don't know better and what's possible from that place.
Yeah.
Can you share a story? Like, do you have a specific story that comes to mind when I ask that question? Like, is there, like when you went, I don't know better, like.
The story that comes up isn't around that, but it was a lesson that taught me that. And it was a number of years ago when one of my kids had started primary school. And my youngest was in the nursery next door. And as any good paranoid parent does, they're peeking into the playground, seeing how she is. And I see her standing alone in the playground with all of her friends, all of the other primary ones playing around her, and she's not joining in. And straight away, I had that moment of, oh, there's something wrong. And I went to the dark place of what's happened, my little baby, and I brought up my own stories, because if you found me standing alone in the playground, that would have been because I wasn't joining in. And if I wasn't joining in, it wouldn't have been through my lack of want. It would have been because I was excluded in some way. So these are the stories that I had in my head. So I went to the dark place, as I said, and had a conversation with my daughter afterwards. And like you're saying, for Leo, being so wise, she'd said, Mum, They all wanted to run about and play, and I didn't. So I didn't join in.
Right.
And for me, through that conversation, I learned about her that she has got this deep sense of self, of confidence in who she is. And if she doesn't want to join in with something that she doesn't want to join in with, she won't. Clear as simple as that. And that really highlighted for me the amount of baggage that as a parent I bring to the table, because in that moment I was looking through eyes of my 8-year-old self rather than this apparently wise parent. At that moment in time, it was that little person who was, I'm absolutely fine. So we had a conversation about what I seen, and she's like, "Oh, Mum, that's a wee shame." And it was a lovely kind of connecting moment where she knew fine well that, you know, I'm just Colette, a person, not this know-it-all mum.
I love that. I have a question that's popped up into my awareness right now. And have you had your kids ever lie to you?
Oh, yes.
Like,
yeah. Well, we have a game now where they fess up to the lies that they've told, which is really funny because it's easy to own something when it's retrospective.
Right.
So it can be really tough in that moment for them to own up to things. So they'll lie, blatantly lie. And sometimes I've been aware of the lie and I'm right, okay, how do we work through this so you can accept that and actually admit to it? And sometimes I've not been aware of it. And then it will come up a couple of years on when they're like, yeah, that was a lie. Yeah, there's been loads of lies. Loads of lies. I think that's a human thing. It's a self-preservation thing. In this moment, for whatever reason, it doesn't feel safe for me to tell the truth because of something that I have, whether it's the truth or reality or otherwise. So it's safer for me to make up a story about what did happen that's more acceptable. That's natural. Doesn't make it acceptable, but it is natural.
I remember a moment where Leo, he's only 5, and he's had, not an issue, but he's had some stuff go on around when he feels insecure, he's lashed out and he's basically either bitten a kid or, hit a kid or whatever. And I remember he mentioned something about not being able to go out to play at school. And I got curious about that. And I said, well, why not? And he goes, well, I was on timeout. And I said, what happened? And he goes, oh, nothing. And in that moment, I was like, something happened. What happened? And he's like, I don't want to tell you. And I said, well, I'm not going to get angry. Just want to know. So anyway, he told me that he'd bitten another kid on the cheek. And I realized actually I was more like, there was a sense of like, oh, wow, I'm that's amazing that he could confess that to me. Like there was that space. And I realized actually it's more important for me to know that Leo can come to me with something like that and know that he has the safe space to share that with me, that he can share that and know that I won't get angry. Or if I do, that it's just not anything about that. It's just me kind of getting into my own insecurity in that moment, that there is obviously a conversation to be had about it. Because I remember like not wanting to share things with my parents because I was so scared of the consequences of that.
Absolutely. And there's a really interesting, say, a psychiatrist, something like that, Dan Siegel, but he talks of the 4 S's of attachment. And attachment are basically the communication strategies that we create as little people to stay alive. And because obviously as little people, we are born into this world helpless. We're, a mammal that takes a long time to develop and become independent. And those 4 S's are ensuring that we feel soothed. So when we're in a heightened state, whether that's real excitement or, the depths of sadness or anything in between, that we have got at least one person who can soothe us, that we can go to and can hear us and see us. Next one is feeling seen. And Dan talks about mindsight. That's really seeing the essence of you, not your behaviour, but who you really are. And feeling safe. So safe is being safe from any form of harm, whether that's physically, sexually, emotionally. And all of that needs to show up consistently. So that's the 4th one, security. So we need to have the security that our person, most often one of the parents, shows up in a regular way, that they soothe us, they ensure our safety, and they actually see the essence of us. So for me, there's something around creating that circle of safety so that we can actually see our children, not the behaviour, because it's so easy to get really angry about that. And obviously, biting somebody in the cheek is unacceptable for a variety of different reasons. However, the fact that you created that safe environment, that you can see him and he knows that he's seen, for him to be able to share that kind of stuff, that's really, really, really important. And there's so many parents throughout the world who aren't aware that that's a fundamental human need, for us to feel seen and safe and soothed, and for our core people to show up in that consistent way.
Because, I know, if I've done something and I know that somebody else might judge it or get pissed off or angry, I'm less likely to want to share that with them.
Absolutely.
But if there's an understanding of, actually, I just want to understand what was going on for you in that moment, versus it being, let's judge or criticize the behavior, let's have an opinion about it. I'll be more likely to want to open up to that person.
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing is, behaviour is just a physical manifestation of all of that glorious stuff that's going on inside. So if we spend as much time getting curious and creating that circle of safety for people to feel safe to open up and share all the wonderful stuff that's going in and the not so wonderful stuff that's going on inside of them that's connected to their behaviour, that behaviour is more likely to change. But if we create a parenting style that's very chastising and judging and focused on how they are showing up behaviourally, personally, I don't think that's a very effective way of doing things. And then kids grow up into adults with, they don't have a strong sense of self. They don't feel able to ask for what they want and to share what they need, because as a child, they never experienced that.
So what's your take on discipline? I've come back, I've flipped with this. It's do this and then you get that. Don't do that, then you'll have that taken away from you. Between that and connection and just wanting to understand and then putting firm boundaries in place. What's your take on that?
For me, it is, you've just said it, it's connection and boundaries. And boundaries are really important to understand. So when we talk about discipline, often people come at it from that behavioural point of view, what's acceptable, what's not. But do any of us understand why that behaviour is acceptable and why that behaviour isn't? Those are the conversations I'm interested in. And those are the conversations that I've had numerous times over the years with the kids. I'm not interested in them following a rule just for the sake of following a rule. I want them to get curious and understand why that rule is in place in the first place. How does that serve them? How does that serve other people?
That makes a lot of sense, and it's more motivational, because once there's understanding, they can make sense of that, and it makes more sense for actually them to be sitting in that behaviour more of the time or less of the time.
And it's absolutely okay. Just, I'm a big believer the easiest way to get what we want is to ask. And it's really important to become aware of our boundaries from those 4 S's. Where is my safe circle? Where does it start and where does it end? And it's okay for me to say that infringes on my sense of safety. Therefore, that's totally not okay. And it's okay to demand that. It's okay to express that. It's okay to have conversations around that. But it's understanding that's the main thing. So I'm a strict parent. For those outside, I do seem very laid back, and I am very laid back. All my friends, when we had like play dates and things like that, the kids would come and they would think they could get away with anything in our house because I am a very welcoming, come on into the house, that's great, everything just, play away. But I do have strict expectations, as in, I suppose the best way to sum it up is leading with love. My home is your home, and it doesn't matter if you're 5 or 15 or 25, but come on and treat everybody and everything with respect. You can do whatever the heck you want. So we had a playroom. We recently moved last year, so it was an old house. And the kids loved it. And when they were all the kids would come over and they would cause absolute carnage, which they loved, because anarchy isn't something that's really encouraged in many people's houses. I was absolutely fine with it. However, you're going to tidy up your own mess. You create that anarchy, but that's not on me. That is absolutely not on me to tidy that up. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with the strictness. It's the understanding of those boundaries. So yes, your job is to play. Your job is to experiment and explore this world. And with that, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with it. So over time, they learn that, that was really good fun to create that mess, but it's not so much fun to tidy it up. And it's even less fun to have to get all my friends to tidy up with me, because that's the rule of the house. If you create the mess, you tidy it up. So over time, the mess became less and less, and they understand that's why we've got the rule. It's not that making a mess is a bad thing at all.
Right, sure. But they have to, yeah. I mean, I've made a massive allowance at the moment because of coronavirus downstairs in the living room.
Yeah.
Things have to be put away to a certain extent, but not everything. But I'm now very keen on Leo doing the same thing, really, is, play, leave a mess, but you've got to pick yourself up afterwards. That's really important. It's just a sense of self-responsibility, I guess, in giving them responsibility to a certain extent.
And it's understanding how we work well together as a family, and what I need and what you need and what we need.
Maybe different.
Yeah, and me standing on Lego pieces doesn't make me a very present parent.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely what works, what doesn't work. And I think that's really useful. What's working for them, what's not working for them, what's working for you, what's not working for you, and then come to some sort of middle ground and create something that can work for everybody. But do you actually ever find that it works for everybody? Because I'm assuming that that maybe there's always like a, well, that doesn't really work for me, but I'll do it anyway? Or is there anything around that? Or do you usually come to some sort of agreement?
There's always, that's the beauty of compromise, that there's, it's not, and it's really important that it's not 100% me getting my own way.
Sure.
And because that's important, it's important that my daughter doesn't get 100% her way, and my son, etc. So that's the joy of meeting in the middle. And meeting in the middle involves a little bit of grieving and a little bit of letting go of that, that I really, really want that thing. So yeah, of course, we hump and grump.
Hump and grump.
Absolutely. There's not a zen, we have conversations, we compromise, we say, right, okay, let's give this a go. And then we'll review and reflect it. So how did that work? That works better. Brilliant. So for example, back to kind of discipline and all that kind of thing. So we've got a chore chart, and it's not really a chore chart, it's a whiteboard in the kitchen. And so I write down all the things that need done. And this has worked in a variety of different ways over the years. So it used to be that I would allocate, like, Callum, you've got to do this, Carrie, you've got to do that, Heather, you've got to do that, and, allocate chores. And then over a number of months, they got a little bit kind of fed up with the jobs that they were doing. Callum had, for example, his exams on, so he didn't have a lot of time. So, life changes. And now we've got a board where I just write all the jobs up and we just score them off as we go, because I think everybody likes a bit of a tick in the box thing, that the fun of wiping it off. And they get praise and rewards for doing as many jobs as they can. And right now, that works. And when I haven't put the things up on the whiteboard, not a lot happens, because they're quite anchored to this visual of, if it's not written on the board, it doesn't need done. So through conversations, it would be my preference to not have to write everything up on the board. So my 100% is, you guys are old enough now, you know what needs done, just do it. But they really like having the instructions on the board and that joy of scrubbing it off. So that's what we do right now, which is a bit of a compromise. And it might not work in a couple of months.
Right.
Right now, it is. So it's not about setting something in stone. It's doing what works. Brainstorm, come up with something, play with it. Great. Did it work well? Keep doing it. If it doesn't work, it's not that it doesn't work, that system doesn't work. It's just that we are fed up with it.
Yeah, and what works for one time doesn't necessarily work for another. You can't expect a 7-year-old to be in nappies anymore. Like, there's just developmentally things shift and change all of the time. And we've got to be so present to that, actually, haven't we? It's a bit like, yeah, what made sense one moment doesn't make sense anymore because they've just changed. Well, this has been really, really lovely, Colette, and I'm really glad we did this, because what I'm hearing is that, if anybody that's listening in today that, for whatever reason it hasn't been working, or you'd like sort of a more inclusive approach, then this has been a really great conversation for that. So if somebody wants to get in contact with you, how can they do that? They
can check out my website, self-titled, ColetteReilly.com. Connect with me on Facebook. Business page, Be Work Life Happy. Just send me a message.
Cool. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. It was very beautiful to connect with you today, and I look forward to doing so in the future. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.
And there we have it, another beautiful episode of The Joy of Being. Now, if you got something from this and you know of somebody that could really, really do with a boost of positivity and joy, then please do share the episode with them. It's amazing the ripple effect that these episodes can have on others. Failing that, if you'd like to join a different conversation around what's going on in these uncertain times, then please do join the Facebook group, The Breathing Space for Hardworking Mamas. You can find us at facebook.com/groups/The Breathing Space for Mums in Business.